On October 27, 1962, the Russian submarine B-59 was hiding in the Caribbean Sea, near Cuba. This was during the Cold War, when the world's two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, were on the verge of all-out war. Both sides were ready to annihilate the other one and were just waiting for the opposing party to take the first step. So, this submarine was a secret weapon of Russia at that time. And it was not just any submarine. It was equipped with nuclear bombs. Unlucky for them, the US Navy spotted the submarine, not knowing about the nukes below. They started dropping smaller bombs near the submarine, trying to get it to come up. It was supposed to be a warning, but the crew in the submarine thought it was an actual attack. So, inside the B-59, the atmosphere became intense. The crew believed a war had started between the Soviet Union and the US. They were ready to launch their nuclear torpedo, thinking it was their only choice. This could have led to unimaginable disaster, maybe even wiping out 70% of the world's population. But, at that moment, one man stepped up. He stopped other captains from pressing the button, and in doing that, he saved the whole world. Let's start from the beginning. After the devastating events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world had witnessed the United States' nuclear capabilities. This is why the Soviet Union was determined not to be outdone. It started aggressively matching the US move for move. We are talking about the times of the Cold War. By that time, the Cold War was no longer a battle of ideologies. It had become an arms race, with each side seeking to gain the upper hand. The US, in a strategic move, installed nuclear missiles in Turkey and Italy. This act was a direct threat to the Soviet Union, given the close proximity of these missiles to Russian soil. From that position, the US could easily attack the western border of Russia. So, in response, the Soviet Union sought a similar strategic advantage. Their opportunity came in the form of Cuba. This country is just 90 miles south of the US coast and politically opposed to the US. The Cuban government and its people were at odds with American influence. So, these were the perfect allies for the Soviets. The Soviet Union saw this as a perfect opportunity and they started a secret operation. They started installing nuclear missiles in Cuba. When the US confronted them about any such actions, the Russian leaders declined these rumors, obviously. However, the US is no second world country. They had their sources. Soon, they found out about these installations, and the secret Soviet mission was out in the open. This is when tensions escalated rapidly. Anticipating a potential Soviet naval presence, the US Navy deployed to the seas. The Soviet Union had sent its B-59 submarine to the Caribbean Sea and had equipped it with nuclear strikes. They had given full control to the captains that if war erupted between the two countries, they could blast the nukes without needing approval from Moscow. Now, the submarine was deep underwater in the Caribbean Sea. The submarine was so deep that it had lost contact with its command, leaving the crew isolated. As tensions peaked, the US Navy deployed a strategy to force the submarine to the surface. They began dropping depth charges around the sub, unaware of the nuclear arsenal on board B-59. This action was meant as a signal to surface, but it was misinterpreted by the Soviet crew as the onset of war. Inside B-59, the crew thought a global war had erupted. They started debating if they should launch their nuclear torpedo. Two senior officers were ready to make this devastating decision. However, Vasil Arkhipov, the third captain and a voice of reason, argued against it. He insisted that the depth charges could be just a signal, not an act of war. He said that it was a critical decision, and they should not take any drastic step without any confirmation about the war. Meanwhile, on the surface, diplomatic efforts had started. President John F. Kennedy and Soviet leadership reached an agreement. They decided to dismantle their respective missile installations in Turkey, Italy, and Cuba and pledged to blast their nuclear bombs into space. This agreement successfully averted the crisis. Had the B-59 crew launched their nuclear torpedo, it would have likely triggered a full-scale nuclear war. More than half the world as we know it might not have existed. However, thanks to Vasil Arkhipov courageous decision, the B-59 surfaced and re-established contact with Moscow. Due to this man, the Cold War did not escalate into a global nuclear war. Archipov's action on that day in 1962 cannot be understated. It was a decision that very likely saved the world. What do you think would have happened if the captains had fired that nuclear torpedo that day? Share your views with us in the comments below. Now, before you leave, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more shocking stories. Thanks for watching. Until next time.